This is Duke University.
Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for having me here. And I'd like to start off by thanking my audience, because after 17 years of not speaking, I realized that if there's no one there to listen, then there's not much communication happening. And so I started off on the 20th anniversary of Earth Day, thanking the audience that had come to hear me speak in Washington, D.C., my mother, my father, some other family members, the press, National Geographic. It was a big moment for me, and I said, thank you for being here. My mother jumps up out of her chair, hallelujah, Johnny's talking, oh my God, you know. Can you imagine not speaking to your mother for like 17 years? And my dad said, that's one. And my dad always said that, and I'm gonna say everything that's at the end, at the beginning. I'll say it again at the end. But my dad, he said that's one because he always wanted me to ride in cars and talk, because I had stopped riding in cars and I had stopped talking. So when I started talking, that was one. He said. I turned around and looked at somebody behind me that wasn't there, because I hadn't heard myself speak in such a long time that I didn't recognize my voice. So I turned around and looked, and I said, that's me. And I started laughing, and my dad looked at me and goes, yeah, he really is crazy. Look at him up there laughing. But I want to take you on this journey, and we have about 7 minutes to go. But I want to take you on this journey, and I want you to think about your own journeys and the possibilities of your journeys. And use that maybe as a kind of a metaphor for all our journeys. The reason I chose Earth Day to start speaking was because after 17 years, I had something to say. 17 years of walking across the United States, listening, I had something to say, and it was about the environment. And I wanted to remind myself that now that I'm speaking, I want to speak for the environment. And the environment for me had changed from being about pollution, because that's why I started walking. I saw 2 oil spills collide near the Golden Gate Bridge, and I just gave up riding in cars. So it was more than that. It was more than pollution. It was about loss of species, loss of habitat. Was that it? No, it was more than that. It was more than that. What I learned when I walked across the country, and I stopped at different universities to study, I learned that environment was about something that we were trying to figure out what it was about. People are part of the environment. I heard that people were part of the environment. But what I didn't hear, and why I started speaking, was because if people were part of the environment, then our first opportunity to treat the environment in a sustainable way, or even understand what sustainability is in how we treat each other. How we treat each other, because how we treat each other, and this was my what we call the hypothesis, manifests in the physical environment around us, in the physical world around us, and creates the problems that we see that we say are so intractable. And if we don't put people in front of all of the other things, if we don't put ourselves in front of that, if we don't understand that it's not just about pollution, it's about human rights and economic equity and gender equality and all the ways that we relate to each other, when we deal with the environment, we're just going to be putting Band-Aids on problems that are never going to be solved. And so I started walking because I saw these oil spills. A big oil spill in San Francisco, I gave up riding in cars, and my neighbors said, John, you know, that is crazy. One person is not going to make a difference, and that's what I want you to think about. You're the one person that's not going to make a difference. And I thought, well, God, that must be true. One person can't make a difference. And I found myself walking, but arguing all the time. And so on my 27th birthday, I said, I'm just going to shut up for one day. Shut up for one day. And that one day, I learned something that was just incredible. I learned that I hadn't been listening. I listened just enough to think I knew what was going on. And then I say, oh, I stopped listening and say, oh, look, I could say that better. I could say it in a different way. And what really got to me was that when I stopped listening, I had stopped communication. And the other thing that really bothered me is all those times I thought I knew better, I thought I could say better, I didn't. And if I had just shut up and listened, I might learn something. Well, I thought that all those opportunities to learn, they were gone. But I could do it now. I could stop talking, I could listen, and I would learn. And so for the first year, I didn't speak for like a year. Before I stopped speaking, I called my parents up and I said, Mom, Dad, listen, I've given up riding in cars. My dad says, what? Why didn't I do it when I was 17? Now, I didn't know about the environment then. Yeah, okay. They said that's going to last for a couple years. But when I wrote the letter to tell them that I stopped riding in cars and then stopped talking and I couldn't call anymore, my dad and my mom wrote back, your dad will be on the next plane. Because they thought I had been captured by some strange California cult and I had, given all my money away and I didn't have any money, but I stopped talking and I couldn't come and see them. My dad came out and he said to my mother, he said, yeah, he's okay. He doesn't smoke, he doesn't drink. Could you believe that? He doesn't smoke, he doesn't drink, and people seem to like him. But he just walks around and he's trying to play the banjo. I hadn't learned yet, but no, this wouldn't work in Philadelphia. And my dad flew back home and left me in California. But what I did was I spent a lot of time in wilderness areas. I walked to the first green spot on a map I could find. I mean, I lived in a beautiful place, a place called Point Reyes. I don't know how many people here know Point Reyes, but it's a very beautiful place. But I would walk to San Francisco, I'd walk up to Oregon, I'd walk to Washington, and I'd visit these wilderness areas and dwell in the wilderness area, not speaking, painting and learning to play music, and then I'd come back out. And I eventually went to school in Oregon. And my dad came out, he saw me graduate, and he said, I don't know how you do it. You don't go to school and you don't talk. And I put on my backpack, I grabbed my banjo, and I went to the next school, which was the University of Montana, walking. And I had written them 2 years earlier saying that I wanted to come to the school. And they said, well, when will you get here? And I said 2 years, because I had to walk up to Washington State and build a boat. And they said, okay, we'll be waiting. So when I got up to Montana, I didn't have any money. And they said, so are you ready to register? And I went, said, come back tomorrow. And they gave me $150. Said, you register for 1 credit. And with that $150, that 1 credit, they made me a student. I matriculated. They gave me a key to the office and all that sort of stuff. And they let all the teachers, they gave me classes, all the teachers just kept my grades aside until they figured out when they could get the money, they would just give me the grade. Really creative financial aid. I haven't heard of anything like that. Well, I finished there. My dad came again. He says, oh, God, you graduated with a master's degree. And what are you going to do with a master's degree? You don't ride in cars and talk. He let me, I said, grab my banjo. I walked to the University of Wisconsin and enrolled in a PhD program. Not talking. I was making my final examinations on oil spills. I was studying oil spills. Nobody was interested in oil spills. And guess what happened? Exxon Valdez. Only one in the United States studying oil spills. Me. And so they called up the Coast Guard. Hey, we got to speak to John Francis. He's studying in, no, he doesn't speak. We just want him to get out to Washington and work on he doesn't ride in cars. Do you have any normal people at your university? I ended up walking to the East Coast and graduating. I started talking on that day, remember, the 20th anniversary of Earth Day. And because environment is about who we all are and who we are becoming. And my dad said, that's one. My mom jumped up, hallelujah. And I went to work for the Coast Guard and wrote regulations for the United States. I was a project manager. Thank God I was talking, right? Still riding my bicycle, and commanders are riding their bicycles with me to do tanker inspections and things like that. But if someone had said to me, John, if you really want to make a difference, get out of your car and just start walking. And start walking east. Yeah, and shut up too. You're going to make a difference. I would have thought, oh man, they've been smoking that California stuff back there. But really, that's what happened, and that's a kind of journey that we're on where we don't really know what's going to happen, especially if we follow our heart, what's going on inside us, what we are really passionate about. And that's the message. But I want to leave you with the music because that's beyond words for me. And this is what I had to communicate with for so long. And this tune is called Life Celebration, but see if you can feel what it means.